All right, Janine, if you just read like regular news, you're probably going to see reports of scammers left and right in the financial world. And so it kind of got us thinking. I wanted the financial advisor opinion on this. I mean, how do you keep your clients safe from scammers? Do you provide tips or advice to them in that arena? And would love to hear some stories maybe about how people have maybe almost been victim of scams or did fall victims of scams, and then maybe how you're able to step in and help people from falling victim to those different things.
So scams is a topic close to my experience and heart, if you will, because my grandfather was scammed, and so it really is close to home how vulnerable the elderly are, especially. But anybody who's over 60 or maybe even over 50, depending on how tech savvy you are, and it's a target-rich environment with a very large baby boomer demographic. And the scams are getting more sophisticated. So scams come in many types. There are many types, and there are a lot of very sophisticated scammers, and they're very good. But technology is now, one of the things I wrote about recently to clients is technology, AI, artificial intelligence, now can capture a piece of your voice and then recreate your voice. So there are scams happening where somebody calls, it sounds like your grandson, they're telling, and he's in jail and he needs you to wire money. So there are many stories where people have been scammed out of money, a couple $1,000s here, a couple $1,000s there. And this is for people that don't often, have that to just throw away. But once you send the money, it's gone. But that's actually becoming more common where the scammers are using AI and AI technology to make it seem like it's one of your relatives that needs money. So you have to be very, very careful. So you need to set up a code system in your family so that if they don't answer the code right or whatever, or the person doesn't respond to the question correctly, we started coming up, my kids and I, with different kinds of codes. Depending on the situation.
Why am I not surprised with your military background? You would be really well prepared to handle that particular threat.
Well,
because hey, as a podcaster / YouTuber, there's lots of your voice out there, right? So there's lots for them to choose from to create something realistic, I bet.
Yeah. So I mean, you have to get fairly creative, and then you have to remember the codes.
That's the hardest part.
So
okay, it sounds like it's you. What's my code name?
Yeah.
Orange flamingo. No, that's wrong.
That's wrong. Yeah. Or some question. And in the Bond movies, they're always doing that. And you have to ask the question and it has to be the right answer. But getting clients to actually just start thinking about this, because most of us don't think like criminals. Mm-hmm. So we're not out trying to scam our own families or scam our friends. So when it happens to you, it really does take you back. And your initial response is to answer truthfully. And so you have to be a little more circumspect in how you answer questions. One, and this happened to my father. Somebody called him, and then on his cell phone, and he's on his cell phone for quite some time. And then my mother calls me and says, "Your dad's been on the phone for 3 hours." And I don't know who he's talking to. Well, it was a guy who was really nice to my dad, walked him right through putting his credit card numbers on this little folder on his laptop.
Oh, man.
So immediately all of us went to general quarters, and we're like, change all your account numbers, notify your bank, notify your credit union, notify this. And then after we squared that all away, I was like, "Dad, if you don't know the caller, do not answer the phone." Because they'd call the house phone. So from now on, the rule is, Dad, you're not allowed to answer your phone.
It's just tough.
It is. And it really is.
Technology is a big part of that, right? And the scams are just getting more sophisticated as technology develops and evolves. And I don't fault your parents. I don't fault folks that are in that world, because you're just not interacting with the technology as much as perhaps a younger generation that can then spot those scams and spot those oddities. And they're getting more sophisticated and evolving at a more rapid rate than the older generation can. And it's despicable to people that take advantage of of the elderly or of the older generations, but unfortunately it can be really hard to stop them.
And so there's the tech side and then the scammer side, but there are also the scammers that it's not just bad advice, poor advice. It's people who are out to take your money in some scam way, like a Ponzi scheme or like a false investment. Bank of America just got tagged for $250 million of fine because they were setting up false accounts and false and excess fees. So there's those types of scams. And then there are also scams where you are convinced to buy a product. And maybe it's not technically a scam, but it's really bad advice if you are convinced to buy a product based on somebody scaring you. Or somebody saying, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be Armageddon down the world or down the road, and you're going to have to you need this to do X." So you do have to have a pretty good filter. You have to start developing a filter for the things that you hear because there's so much out there.
Yeah.
And I
so
do talk to clients
scams really
a
a
lot.
sliding scale, it sounds like. You've kind of got true scams, the Nigerian prince, the deposed,
Yes.
send him $1 million because he needs to give you $10 million kind of scam, all the way to just pressure and tactics and things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
And so this is
it's
something
all-
you're educating your clients on when they're in the office with you, and you're kind of talking to them about what to be aware of, or they're consulting you if they run into something that's a bit odd or sketchy.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is I'm very quick to respond if I get some emails from clients or a call that says, I don't understand this. I respond pretty quickly to, okay, this is us. This is how this works. Or this is not us. Just ignore this. Recently on my cell phone, I got a notice and it said, you have 2 minutes to respond to this. And I kept looking at it. And then I looked at my husband. I go, is this a phishing attempt?
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen it before. It was definitely a phishing attempt. So I shut my phone off. Then when I brought it back up, it was gone. So, things like that, when I experience them or when people tell me stories, I relay those to the clients because it's out there and you need to be aware. So.
That's a great point. I got one recently that said it was like my Fidelity account or something like that had been hacked, and I needed to change my password quickly. And it looked like a two-factor authentication, looked very realistic, everything about it. And my email was compromised, and it was a text from what looked like Fidelity, which I was like, whoa. And so I went and I logged into Fidelity, not from my phone, but from a desktop computer. And I log in, and there's no warning lights happening inside of Fidelity. So there's no email saying, oh, you've been compromised, change your login or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it was just all an attempt to get me to panic, do it quickly on my phone.
That's right.
But obviously the link that they would have sent me would have been, compromised.
Yeah.
So
So it is
scary.
it is a little scary because you get this notice that something's wrong with your account and you're like, well, wait a minute, or somebody hacked into your account. I've gotten a few from the USPS. I'm like, the USPS does not text me.
Right.
So,
And if my tax dollars are paying for them to have the ability to do mass texting, right? Let's change that.
So I think
another can of worms. We won't go there.
yeah. So, but people do need to be aware that there are forces out there that are interested in compromising.
I'm going to link in the description, Janine, a video that everybody needs to check out. If you're watching today's episode, go check it out. Have you ever seen the comedian James Veitch and his what he does to scammers?
Oh, I don't think so. I haven't seen his videos. I think I've heard about him though.
He did a whole TED Talk actually on this, where he just said, what happened? I just got this feeling one day. What would happen if I actually responded to one of these scammers? And how long could I keep the charade going? What if I flip it around to them? Kind of like you've heard people who will get a telemarketer on the phone and just never hang up and occupy their time for as long as possible. Kind of like that. So it's his emails going back and forth with these scammers. He takes it so far to where they finally are begging him to stop emailing them. So it's a brilliant piece of comedy. I'll link to it in the description of the show today, so people can check it out. And you got to see it, Janine. You'll very much appreciate it. It's awesome. So, well, very good. If you have questions about being scammed. If you're facing something odd like that and you've got concerns, don't hesitate. Reach out to Janine. She can help you evaluate what you're looking at, what you're dealing with. It's part of the planning process, part of the ongoing education that she provides clients. But if it's kind of the thing that's on the top of your mind, could be the beginning of a good conversation. So reach out if you've got questions. 443-718-6311 is the number. And you can also go to theuswealthadvisors.com. We'll link to that in the description of today's show, so check it out.